So let's start the chapter Human Reproduction without wasting any time. This is chapter 2 of your 12th standard NCRT class 12. Okay, so basically let's start the chapter. Now the first thing in this chapter, we must know about the male reproductive system. So reproduction means, reproduction is a process by which the one organism is producing other organisms which are giving rise to babies, basically, which are similar to the parent. Correct? They are giving rise to progeny which is similar to the parent. And sexual reproduction is a reproduction where it involves two parents, because the baby looks like, the progeny looks like two parents, right? So let's talk about male reproductive system. That is the first topic in this chapter. We are going to discuss about how the male reproductive system works and what all are the male reproductive system. So what are the parts of male reproductive system? When you talk about the male reproductive system, the male reproductive system is basically divided into two types. One is primary sex organ. Male reproductive system contains two primary sex organs and also basically the secondary sex organs. Male reproductive system consists of primary sex organ and secondary sex organ. The primary sex organs are nothing but the testes. They are present in one pair, okay, testes. So testes are present two in number or one pair. Pair means two, okay. So two testes are present. And when you talk about the secondary sex organs, they are nothing but again divided into accessory glands and accessory ducts. Accessory glands and accessory ducts. Just like flower, how you studied accessory and essential bulbs, right? So same way, essential one are the testes. They are, see, primary, both are actually essential, but when you talk about the primary one, these are responsible for the main production of the male gamete, which is the sperms. When you talk about the production of sperm, who is going to produce that? Testes produce it. Whereas the accessory glands and accessory ducts are responsible for the transfer of the sperms from one part to the other. The sperms are going to travel from the testis and they are going to move from different parts, right? So those are known as accessory ducts. Now let's start without. Now let's start talking about first part, that is the testis. So when you discuss about the testis, we are going to discuss about this testis. What I do. So testis basically are one pair, as I told you. They are present two in number. So there are a pair of testes, and the shape of the testis is oval. They are oval shaped, and the size is 4 to 5 centimeter. 4 to 5 centimeter in length. And when you talk about the width, they are 2 to 3 centimeter width, and they are located outside the abdominal cavity. They are located outside the abdominal cavity, right? They are not inside the abdominal cavity, they are outside the abdominal cavity. And in the scrotum. Scrotum is extra abdomen. Outside, right? Scrotum, extra abdomen. And the reason for that is why they are located outside the abdominal cavity. When you talk about why, the reason why they are located outside the abdominal cavity and not inside the abdominal cavity, and why they are present in the scrotum, that is the extra abdomen, because their temperature has to be, that reason for that is their temperature is 2 to 3 degrees less than 37 degrees. That is normal body temperature. Normal body temperature is 37 degree. Here the temperature is 2 to 3 degrees less temperature than other body. This is abdominal cavity temperature, and this is the temperature in scrotum. 2 to 3 degree means basically 35 degrees Celsius, 35 to 34 degrees Celsius, 35 to 34 or 35 degree Celsius. Between this it lies. Okay, it's 2 to 3 degrees Celsius less. Now let's talk. Basically, if we draw the diagram basically looks something like, here there are the scrotum present. Okay, these are the scrotum, and this is known as the abdominal cavity. This side is abdominal cavity, and when you talk about this white color part, this is the scrotum. And inside it, if you look, inside it is present the testis. These are the testis. I'm drawing the diagrams and showing you along with explanation, so that you also get a rough idea how the diagrams are drawn in different parts. Okay, so the testes are present inside the scrotum, as you can see. And now if you see, this is known as cremaster muscle. This testes are attached to the abdominal cavity using cremaster muscle. Using a cremaster muscle. Using a cremaster muscle. These are cremaster muscle. This part is known as cremaster muscle. The muscle which is holding them basically attached to the abdominal cavity is called the cremaster muscle. This white part what I have drawn is not the cremaster muscle. This is actually the spermatic cord. Spermatic cord is attaching them. Okay, spermatic cord this is, and over this we have the cremaster muscle. Like this you are going to have over this. Okay. And here also same way you are going to have the cremaster muscle. Below this, if you see, below this there is also dartos muscle. Dartos muscle. Dartos muscle is present here. This is the dartos muscle. So there are two muscles, okay? Dartos muscle, and here we also have the gubernaculum. So these are the basically parts of the testis. So there is abdominal cavities. You can clearly see, right? So the testis is present outside the abdominal cavity, and it is attached to the abdominal cavity by spermatic cord, as you can see here. The spermatic cord is basically going and taking the sperms away from here. Spermatic cord takes the sperms away, and this cremaster muscle is present here. You can clearly see the cremaster muscle. They regulate the temperature of the scrotum. This cremaster muscle and this dartos muscle. cremaster muscle and the dartos muscle basically here. If you are able to see these two muscles, basically they regulate the temperature. They are helpful in regulating the temperature of scrotum. Okay, temperature of the scrotum, they help to keep lower compared to the body temperature. These two muscles, these two, cremaster muscle and dartos muscle, and testis is present inside. These are the main parts which are going to secrete the sperms. The sperms are going to move from here, from the spermatic cord, and then they are going to go into the penis. So that is the process which is going to happen. Here there is dartos muscle, here there is cremaster muscle which regulate the body temperature, and this is the outer pouch is known as the scrotum, where the testes are actually present inside the scrotum, and below these testes are attached by their gubernaculum. Okay, so gubernaculum are present here. So this is the structure of the testis, the location of the testis, and I explained you the function of these different terms. So next we are going to learn about the I'm going to draw the structure of the testis in detail. Okay, so we are going to draw a bigger structure of the testis. The structure of the testis actually looks like this is the testis, and basically this is tunica albuginea. This white color layer what I have drawn, this is the tunica albuginea, and here if you see, there is also a covering on this side. Also there is a covering on this side, which is known as the tunica vaginalis. Okay, so this question can definitely be asked in the NEET. Tunica vaginalis is present in the male or female, because vagina name you may see and majority students can do mistake, they may think it's female. So tunica vaginalis is the covering of the male testis. If you see, there are different parts which are covering, and then if you see here, basically the testis is divided like this. It has, see, this is the ventral side. I will just represent. Okay, let me first draw. Here you also have the tunica vasculosa. Here there are tunica vasculosa. These are my tunica vasculosas. Almost 250 are present if you talk about these testicular lobules. Okay, so I will just explain. Then seminiferous. This is tunica vasculosa, the covering what you are able to see here, and then inside it is having seminiferous tubules. Inside this it has seminiferous tubules, seminiferous tubule. This is again our seminiferous tubule. 2 to 3 they can have. So 1 to 3 basically. 1, 2, 3. These are the multiples in which it can be present. And then these are attached to rete testis. These are attached to rete testis, which is coiled. You see, all these will go like this, and they form a very coiled like this kind of structure, which is known as the rete testis. And then finally these are attached again to the vasa efferentia. Through vasa efferentia, these get into the part which you are able to see here with this kind of part, which is known as epididymis. So this yellow color portion is known as the epididymis. I will be explaining you about these different parts. Here also basically it is like this coiled. The sperms are going to travel across this like this. Then ultimately is the vas deferens. So basically then this is attached to the vas deferens. It goes to the vas deferens. So these are the different parts of the testis. So I'm going to name the parts now. You just see clearly. First outermost covering is called the tunica vaginalis. Okay, this is very important. You must remember the name. This covering is known as the tunica vaginalis. Then you have the this testis covering, which is called as tunica albugini. And the third covering is known as tunica vasculosa. Third covering is known as the tunica vasculosa. And then if you talk about, these are the different coverings which are done, and now we are going to talk about the main part of the testis. Okay, so I'm going to explain, listen carefully. This is the structural and functional unit of testis. This is the one which is responsible for production of sperms. So what is this unit called as? There are such around we have 250. Okay, around we have 250 of them. These are known as testicular lobules. So we are going to study about them. So they have, see, this is testicular lobules. This structural and functional unit, when you talk about them, these are known as testicular lobules. They are around 250 in number. And then when you talk about how they produce the sperms, the testicular lobules are the ones which are responsible for the production of sperms. They have seminiferous tubules, almost 1 to 3 in each testicular lobule. They have seminiferous tubules, the seminiferous tubule, which are responsible they have, let me try to think. So they have this seminiferous tubules inside them, yellow color what you are able to see. They are called as seminiferous tubules. So these seminiferous tubules basically are the ones which are present 1 to 3 number. In every testicular lobule you can see 1 to 3 number. So total how much there will be? Total roughly, if you see 3 in each, then it becomes roughly maximum around how much? 750, right? So 250 to 750 it comes when you multiply the number. So that is the, in each testicular lobule there are around 1 to 3 in number. Next part if you see is the tunica recti. Next part is the tunica recti. This is basically here where this is attached to, that is called the tunica recti or recti, whatever you call it. And then we have the, finally from here the sperms move. Okay, so there is a gap here, interstitial space is present between this. What is interstitial space? The space that you are able to see between the seminiferous tubule. The space that you are able to see here between the seminiferous tubules between two or three seminiferous tubules, what space you are going to see? That is known as interstitial space. Interstitial space. Okay, that is the space which is present here. And so now, after the sperms are produced, you can see here they enter this green color region. What I have shown here through green color. So they enter into this region which is known as rete testis. Rete testis. After the rete testis, they go and pass through the vasa efferentia. This vasa efferentia are 10 to 12 in number. You can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So like this 10 to 12 they will be present. And this is known as this region what I have drawn. This region is known as the yellow color region. This yellow region is known as this entire part. This vasa efferentia is attached to this part, right? So this part collects the sperm. So this part is known as the epididymis. So this is known as epididymis. So let me name this. This is having an head and body and tail. So head is known as, if you talk about the head region, this is known as head, which is known as caput or caput. Caput is known as the head. Body is the corpus. Corpus, the body. And then finally, if you talk about is the cauda. Cauda, which is the tail. And then these three together, as I told you, is known as epididymis. So the function of epididymis is the one which is responsible for storage of sperms. Sperms are stored here. Storage of sperms is done in the epididymis, and these are functional maturation of sperms. They do functional maturation of sperms is done here. Sperms get functionally matured here, okay? So that is the function of this part. And then finally it leaves out of the body into, not out of the body, finally it leaves out of this testis into vas deferens or VD, into vas deferens. So these are the parts. These are the parts that you must remember. This is the structure of the testis. This is the structure of the human testis. This is the structure of the human testis in males. This is the structure of the testis in males. Now we are going to study about the seminiferous tubule. I told you the seminiferous tubule here. This structure is responsible for the production of sperm, right? This is a functional unit. This is responsible for production of sperm. So let's talk about this structure. Only this structure I'm going to zoom and show you. First, we learned the entire outside portion. Then we zoomed at this testis. Then when you zoom into this slide, this testis, you end up on this slide. And when you zoom into this small portion, then you are going to end up into what I'm drawing right now. Okay, so this is the functional unit of the testis. This finally what I'm drawing here. This is the structure of the seminiferous tubules, the ones which are basically going to do the synthesis work, the ones which are basically going to do the synthesis of the sperms. So here if you see, this is the outermost layer. This part, this is my outer layer or the seminiferous tubule that I am drawing, and then See here. Here if you see basically the outermost lining across this is present in everything. Okay, all the three. This outermost lining, what I'm drawing right now, this is known as this is known as tunica. I'm just going to name the parts immediately soon and then I will explain you. Tunica, propria, and inside it is the germinal. Inside it is the germinal, germinal, epidermis, and then we have our so here outside you can see Leydig cells present. Here you are able to see our Leydig cells present. These are known as Leydig cells. Here there are Leydig cells present, and then if you see immunological cells or lymphocytes, we also have lymphocytes here which are going to fight against the various diseases if you see, which are going to protect. So lymphocytes other name is immunologically competent cells. Immunological competent cells. And then there are also blood vessels. There are also blood vessels present here and there. This is blood vessels. Now we are going to talk about the important parts. Okay. So basically this Leydig cells are the one where the luteinizing hormone is going to come and attach to. Luteinizing hormone LH, and sperm production happens in Spermatogonia mother cell. So let's talk about the Spermatogonia mother cell. So Spermatogonia mother cell is basically present here. These are the cells inside each of them. Okay, I'm just drawing one of them right now. So these are Spermatogonia mother cell, which give rise to sperms basically. These are spermatogonia. These are called gonia. Spermatogonia is nothing but sperm mother cell, which are responsible for production of sperms. Sperm mother cell. And now if you see about in between them is also Sertoli cells, which give nourishment. Obviously only the sperms cannot be present, right? So nourishment also somebody has to give. In between there are nourishment cells as well. So these cells are going to give nourishment. They are going to provide nourishment. These are known as Sertoli cells. So Sertoli cells give the function of nourishment to the sperms. So nourishment. And then these are the main functions. These are the main things that we are going to see. So this is the entire structure, and then the sperms are going to be ready, and then they are going to pass into this lumen, into the space what you are seeing in between, which is called as the lumen. From lumen it passes and then it goes out in the then it enters into the through the penis, through the ducts, and then from vas efferentia you can see finally it comes out. So this is the structure of seminiferous tubule. Ferrous tubules. So these are the different parts. So basically spermatogonia or sperm mother cells are the ones responsible for production of sperm, which then go into the lumen, and they are also nourished into this. They are also nourished into this portion, which is called as the Sertoli. In Sertoli cells give nourishment to them, and there are Leydig cells which are present here, and there are blood vessels which are present here, and there are lymphocytes which is present, which are responsible for immunological competent cells, and germinal epithelium, and here you can see tunica propria, which is the protection outside. And here this is known as the interstitial space. This is the interstitial space which I showed you here. I showed you here, right? Interstitial space between two. This is the structure of that. These three are present here. If I zoom into this, portion, this is circular portion. I drew 3. It can be present 2. Like for example here 3. I drew this 3. In between them gap was called as interstitial space, right? So same way here, in between this gap is known as interstitial space. So this is the interstitial space. Now let's talk about the male accessory glands. So this is the other importance. Male accessory glands. Now what are the male accessory glands? When you talk about the male accessory glands consist of seminal vesicle, then there is a prostate gland, and then there is also bulbourethral gland. So when you discuss about each of them, when we talk about each of them, this is present in a pair. They secrete 60 to 70% of the contents of semen. 60 to 70% of the part of the semen is produced by them. Whom? 60 to 70% of the part of semen is produced by seminal vesicle. And then when you talk about, it's also contains fructose. They form the 60 to 70% part of the semen, seminal vesicle, and they help in fructose, secretion of fructose, And then when you see prostate gland is unpaired, whereas the first one was present in pair, right? This is unpaired. This secretes 30 to 40% of part of the semen. This contains 30 to 40% part of the semen, and its secretions contain, whatever secretions it is doing, that contains calcium, and they contain phosphorus, that is phosphate, and some enzymes, etc. And here if you talk about, this contains one pair. This is present in one pair again, and this help in neutralizing the acidity of urethra, because urethra is acidic, right? So neutralize the acidity of urethra, and lubrication of the penis. It also gives lubrication of penis. So these are the different parts when you talk about the accessory glands. So when you talk about semen is nothing but semen contains seminal plasma, seminal plasma plus sperms. Both together is known as semen. So seminal plasma plus sperms is known as semen. Okay, so the entire fluid that is going to come out of the male penis, which is entering the female body, that is known as a semen. It contains sperms. Sperms are just a part of that. So don't think that the sperms come out. The liquid that comes out is a semen. It contains seminal plasma, the liquid part, and sperms inside it. So this is the different parts. Now just a short small lay, we'll just draw here the structure of the penis, just in short. The penis looks something like this. The penis looks something like this. cavernosa. On the dorsal side it is having corpus. On the dorsal side it has corpus cavernosa. Corpus cavernosa. This is present 2 in number, and this is present on the dorsal side. And then when you see on the ventral side it is having one corpus spongiosum. Corpus spongiosum is 1 in number, so this is how the corpus spongiosum looks like. This is one which is present in the ventral side. This is called as the corpus spongiosum. So this is how it will be colored. Corpus spongiosum. You can see here the name itself is a spongy tissue. Spongiosum, which is present on the ventral, and this is one. Okay. And then if you see in between the space that you're able to see, that is called the urethra. This is the urethra, the space in between. Okay, urethra is present in corpus spongiosum. Inside the corpus spongiosum, who is present? Urethra is present. And they here, if you see prepuce, this is called as the prepuce. The forward thin skin what I have drawn, that is called as prepuce, or also known as foreskin. It is thin and foreskin. It is called as. And front you have an opening from where the sperms are basically going to come out, right? So front you have this kind of opening, which is known as the urethral meatus. Urethral meatus. So these are the parts of the, or also known as urinogenital apparatus, because urine and genital both common aperture, right, in males. So urinogenital aperture means hole. So urinogenital aperture. These are the different parts. What we are going to study. And this is known as glans penis. The forward, this bulged portion what you are able to see. This is known as glans penis. This is the bulged portion what you are able to see. The forward portion is little bulged. So this is the structure of the penis. This is the external genitalia of the male. Now we are going to talk about the external genitalia of the female. So we are going to talk about the female reproductive system right now. So female reproductive system. When you talk about the female reproductive system consists of the primary sex organ, and also contains the secondary sex organ. When you talk about the primary sex organ, here the primary sex organ is nothing but the ovary. There it was the testis, here it is the ovary, which is present in one pair. There also testis was male, it was present in one pair. The testis, here ovary is present in one pair. And then finally it is having the secondary sex organ, which is nothing but accessory ducts. And also external, it has external genitalia. So when you talk about the ovary is present. When I talk about this ovary here, ovary is present one pair, and then its size is 2 to 4 centimeter long when you talk about the length, and it is a primary sex organ which is present in the lower part of the abdominal cavity. This is present in abdominal cavity, lower part. whereas male was outside, right? This is present in lower part of the women, contain it in the abdominal cavity, lower part of abdominal cavity, and it produces ova and secretes sex hormones. It produces ova and secretes the sex hormones, and they are connected pelvic wall and uterus by ligaments. They are connected to the pelvic wall by ligaments. Ligaments connect them to pelvic. So we are going to study about the simple structure there, how we studied. So here if you talk about the structure looks something like this. This is germinal epidermis again. Simple cuboidal epithelium it is made up of. This is the part. And then when you talk about the green color below here, I am representing it with green color. This portion below it is known as the tunica albuginea. Tunica albuginea here also, and here there are developing follicles present. Underneath this we have stroma. This is the medulla basically. Here we have the medulla, and here there are developing follicles. The follicles are developed here. This is known as developing follicles. So here we have our developing follicles. Now this space is known as the cortex and stroma. This is cortex. This is medulla. I already drew the medulla. Okay, so this is the medulla. These both together are known as stroma. They are present in the stroma. Okay, so this is the structure of the ovary. Now let's talk about how the uterus or the womb actually looks like. So here if you draw the structure of this, complete female reproductive tract, if I'm drawing the structure of that, this is the perimetry, the outer wall what I'm drawing, perimetry, and then this here, from here it goes and attaches like this, and from here it is having this ampulla, and here it has infundibulum, which is having finger-like projection, and then from here it is attached to the ovary. From here this is attached to the ovary. This is the ovary basically. So isthmus is this narrow part. What you're able to see, this is called isthmus, and this is called ampulla. In ampulla only the fertilization takes place mainly. Okay, ampulla. The fertilization takes place here. In this is the site of fertilization. This ampulla is the site of fertilization. And then when you go further, this is known as infundibulum. This is known as infundibulum, which is going to receive the ova. So this is known as infundibulum, and from here the ovulated egg is going to pass into this. See, the ovary releases this ovulated egg, right? So this ovulated egg is going to enter inside this, and this is known as ovarian ligament. This green color portion what you're seeing is known as ovarian ligament. And now let's complete the structure of the womb. This entire portion this side what I'm drawing now, that is called as womb. So the outermost structure is known as the uterus basically. So perimetrium, the outermost layer of this is known as perimetrium. Then inside this we have the myometrium. Inside this basically we have our myometrium. This is known as myometrium. See, both the side it is same. You can just I don't know if it is possible to copy and paste this. I don't think it is possible. Okay, no issues. So this side again the same portion repeats. Okay, you can see the diagram in your NCRT. Basically the same part is going to be present on the side. I'm not drawing it because it is going to take a lot of time then. And inside there is endometrium. Inside lining is known as endometrium. This is known as endometrium. And here if you see then this goes into the cervix. This is called as the cervix. And then the outer layer is known as vagina. This outer portion is known as the vagina, where the intercourse takes place. And this canal is known as cervical canal. That space is known as cervical canal. So this is the different parts of the. Here if you see myometrium is the thickest, you need to remember this. This myometrium is the thickest. Perimetrium is the outermost layer. So now let's talk about the female accessory ducts. So female accessory ducts are nothing but, when you talk about the female accessory ducts, fallopian tube. Female accessory ducts, when you talk about them, they contain the fallopian tube. I already drew the diagram here. Infundibulum, ampulla and isthmus, these three parts are present. This is fallopian tube. This entire thing is called as fallopian tube. It has isthmus, ampulla and infundibulum. Ampulla is the site for fertilization, where the fertilization basically takes place. So that is the fallopian tube. And then there is uterus. Uterus is the part which is known as the womb. Uterus is the part which is known as the womb. So this part is known as the uterus, what I drew later. This is known as the womb. That is where the baby lives. Okay, baby gets nourishment. It has endometrium, myometrium and perimetrium. Endometrium, innermost layer, myometrium and perimetrium. That is known as uterus. And next we are going to final portion is vagina. This is non-glandular. It does not secrete any gland. And muscular structure, non-glandular and muscular. This is a site for intercourse, where the male portion, that is the penis, is going to enter. So now we are going to draw the structure of the female genitalia, the complete structure. Basically it has the labia majora, labia minora, all those portions. So this outermost portion if you see, that is known as labia majora. And underneath if you see little softer skin, that is called labia minora. And here if you see there is vaginal opening. This is called as vaginal opening. This is urethral opening. Females have separate opening, as you can see. This is known as urethral opening, that is for urine. Urethral opening. For male it was a common passage, right? Genito. Urinogenito passage. But here if you see, urethral opening is separate. And above this, if you see, above this is present the clitoris. Clitoris. Okay, and this is known as, this side is known as mons pubis. Mons pubis. Here there is Bartholin gland opening. Bartholin gland opening. So these are the parts. And finally below this, if you see, is the anus. This is the anus below it. Okay. And if you draw the full structure, if we draw the full structure here like this, the legs are going to come, and this is how the female reproductive system ultimately looks like. These are the legs. So this is the structure. Okay, labia majora, labia minora, I just showed you all the structures. And basically if you talk about the hymen, here there is partially covered by thin vascular membrane called hymen. Thin vascular membrane is covered by thin vascular membrane called hymen. So most people think that after intercourse it has to break. It's not necessarily true. It can stay even after intercourse. So this is not a method by which you can determine the virginity of a female. So that is not true, because either it can break by various sports or activity, or even after intercourse it might not break. So it is hard. You cannot use this method to determine the virginity of a female. So this does not talk about anything like that. So this is the female genital system. Now finally the other part is mammary glands. Let's talk about the mammary glands. When you discuss about the mammary glands, the outermost, when I'm able to draw the outermost this is called the nipple, which is present here, and then behind it is the ribs. Here we have the ribs which are present. This is basically the muscle what I have drawn, not the ribs. This is the muscle which is known as pectoralis major. Pectoralis major muscle. And behind this, if you see, are the ribs. These are the ribs. These are the ribs. And these are intercostal muscles. The thin one what I have drawn is intercostal muscle, because they are present in between. Okay. Now we are going to draw. In between there can be fat. Everybody has variable amount of fat, so there is different amounts of fat that can be present. These are known as fat. It is in variable amount. Then there is a connective tissue which is present. Connective tissue, this is known as, this white color dots are connective tissue. And then this one, as I told you, is the nipple, which is attached by lactiferous gland. Lactiferous gland. See the openings, wherever the pipes which carry openings in human body are known as gland. Okay, this is pipe, right? So it is known as gland. but the name of the gland is lactiferous because for lactation it is acting. Lactiferous duct, not gland. Ducts are the parts which are openings. And here if you see, here it is having the mammary ampulla. Behind this it is having the mammary ampulla, and then behind it has the mammary duct. Here if you see, these get into the body like this. These are going to be connected like this. This green color portion is known as mammary duct. Mammary duct. And then finally they reach the mammary tubule, and finally is the alveoli. This is the mammary tubule. Mammary tubule, and these are the finally alveoli. So these are the different parts what you can see. Now what is the process? Gametogenesis. Next you must know, gametogenesis is the process of formation of sperms or oogenesis, that is known as gametogenesis. Gametogenesis. Gametogenesis is containing two processes. One is spermatogenesis, that is production of sperms, spermatogenesis. Another one is the process of oogenesis, formation of ova. It is called oogenesis. So spermatogenesis happens in the seminiferous tubule. This happens in seminiferous tubule, whereas this takes place in the ovary, and starts at puberty until old age. It continues. This starts in embryonic stage, and stops around 50 years age. 50 years of age, that is known as menopause. It is going to stop in the case of women. Spermatogenesis, if you see the process, if I represent the process of spermatogenesis here, spermatogenesis, if you see, there is two diploid spermatogonia first, then they undergo mitosis and they form again diploid spermatogonia, and then primary spermatocyte, bigger one, primary spermatocyte, then they are going to form secondary spermatocyte. This is N, secondary spermatocyte, and then finally again by meiosis. This is meiosis 1, and meiosis 2 they are going to produce again all are N. Okay, so haploid spermatid, they are going to produce haploid spermatid. And if I represent this one spermatid after differentiation, they undergo differentiation and then they get a tail behind them, and then they form the sperm. So this is the entire process. So this phase is known as multiplication phase, because multiplication is taking place. Then this phase, if you see, is known as growth phase, and the final phase is known as maturation. And this is spermatogenesis and this is spermiogenesis. So from here to here, if you see, this is spermatogenesis, and this last step what I have drawn is known as spermiogenesis. So production of sperm is known as spermiogenesis, and spermatogenesis, this is spermatogenesis, because sperm is not produced, it it is just going multiplication. If you see the structure of the sperm, basically structure of the sperm is containing head, then it has a body, then it has a then it is having a tail. Okay, so the head contains plasma membrane, the head contains plasma membrane, this is the plasma membrane, it is having acrosome on the top, acrosome, then it has nucleus containing chromosomal material, this is chromosomal material, then there is neck, so this is known as the head. Okay, next we are going to talk about the neck. The neck is distal centriole, there is middle piece, mitochondria is present, and finally tail is responsible for the movement of the sperm, tail is responsible for movement. Okay, so these are the parts of the sperm. Oogenesis. When you talk about oogenesis also happens to end, then mitosis takes place and it produces oogonia, oogonia, and then primary oocyte, this is bigger one, primary oocyte, this is oogenesis process. And then this undergoes mitosis, meiosis 1, and arrested in prophase till puberty. Still puberty, this will be stuck here. Until puberty it is stuck here, okay, in prophase 1. Until a woman achieves puberty. So fetal life 25 weeks. This is multiplication phase and this is growth phase. Multiplication phase, growth phase. Then meiosis 1, meiosis 2 happens, primary polar body degenerates, secondary oocyte is produced, in puberty and menstrual cycle begins. After that puberty and menstrual cycle begins. Puberty, menstrual cycle begins. Then ovulation, basically in ovulation what is happening? Ovulation, the ova is produced finally. After ovulation, ova is produced. Ova. So this is the process of oogenesis. Next, in fallopian tube it is happening. Secondary site is to reach fallopian tube. This is going to reach fallopian tube, where the fertilization takes place. This is the entire process. And next, when you develop, you can see the diagram of development of follicles. We have oogonia, then oogonia form primary oocyte, then this is called primary follicle, this is the process of the oogonia. Development of follicles in ovary, what happens? Primary oocyte, and then this is secondary follicle. This is primary follicle, then it forms a secondary, it's basically going to form a secondary follicle. This is my secondary follicle, and then tertiary follicle, which is going to be differentiated theca layer. It is going to have a differentiated theca layer on top of it. Okay, it is going to have a differentiated theca layer on top of it, and it is having multiple cells inside it. If you see, multiple cells are going to be present, and this is how it is looking. This is tertiary follicle, this is secondary follicle. This is the process basically. Oogonia becomes oocyte, primary oocyte becomes primary follicle, primary to secondary, secondary to tertiary, and then tertiary follicle is going to become the Graafian follicle. Finally it is going to become the Graafian follicle. Primary going to form the Graafian of follicles, development of follicles, ovary if you talk. Now menstrual cycle is very important. In menstrual cycle you must know there are different phases if you study about the menstrual cycle. And then placenta is the place where the embryo is getting formed, and parturition means vigorous contraction. So menstrual cycle, you need to study the diagram that is given in the NCERT. I don't have the diagram here with me right now. So menstrual cycle, if you see menstrual cycle is because of hormones. One is FSH hormone. If you see FSH hormone's level is low, suddenly FSH hormone level peaks at one certain stage. And then if you study the LH hormone also is similar. LH hormone levels are also peak at one certain point in the women. And developing follicle, I showed you about the follicle developing, right? So follicle development takes place like this. Here the follicle is mature, then mature follicle, then the follicle begins regression of the follicle. So maturation of the follicle is taking place, and that is happening. And then you can study the estrogen levels. Estrogen level also, what happens, this green color when I am drawing estrogen level at one certain point later, at the end it increases. And progesterone level also, if you see, progesterone level also increases right before the estrogen level increases in the body of the woman. And here if you see the uterus, the lining of the uterus, initially the lining of the uterus is here, menses takes place, bleeding phase. This is the bleeding phase initially, and then the uterus lining slowly starts to get thicker. During this phase, the lining of the uterus is very thick because it is waiting for fertilization. And then if fertilization doesn't take place, again menstruation, bleeding, through bleeding the uterus lining starts to reduce. So this is number of days when you talk about the women menstrual cycle. So if you see the menstrual cycle from 1 day to 29th day, it goes like this: 1 day, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, 21 days, around 21, 25, 27th day. This is the stage what is happening. Okay, so this is the entire menstrual cycle which is explained in the form of a chart. You can see in the textbook, you will be able to understand better what all is happening. And then placenta, if you see, placenta is the place where implantation and the baby is being formed. There is umbilical cord, oxygenated blood is going through the placenta inside the baby. Okay, placental villi are present. Placenta is the tube basically from implantation where the baby is going to receive the nutrients. And what is parturition? Parturition is the vigorous contraction at the end of the contraction is happening for the uterus, vigorous contraction of uterus at end of pregnancy, and it leads to expulsion of the baby. That is known as parturition. It is a complex endocrine mechanism. It is a complex neuro, because of the brain also it happens. Neuro, it involves the nervous system. Endocrine, it involves hormones. Mechanism, so it is a complex neuro. Secretion of progesterone decreases in this, minimum from placenta. The signals for expulsion come from fully developed uterus. Fully developed fetus is responsible for the signals which is generating, signals. And the placenta induced mild uterine contraction, that is known as fetal ejection. You should remember this: fetal ejection reflex. Fetal ejection reflex is nothing but from the placenta. Signals are generated which cause uterine contraction, that is known as fetal ejection reflex. So this is parturition. And finally lactation. Lactation is nothing but, this is about placenta, now we are studying about lactation. Lactation is nothing but mammary glands differentiate during, after the delivery of the baby, they produce milk, that is called lactation, which is mammary glands are producing, mammary glands are going to secrete milk at the, they get developed, and milk is produced in the initial few, after initial few days of lactation. And initially the what milk is produced, that is called colostrum, and colostrum is the initial milk which is very much important for the baby. It contains immunoglobulin A, which is responsible for antibodies of the baby, and it contains vitamin A and B. So that's why it is very healthy for the baby. This is the end of the chapter. If you stayed until the end of the chapter, very good, and do subscribe to the channel and make sure you're writing down whatever I'm telling you, so that